Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottar Shat Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय ब्रज भूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की जय गंगा माई की जय यमुना माई की जय तुलसी महारानी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय सामवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल all glories to assembled devotees all glories to assembled devotees all glories to assembled devotees all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga all glories to Srila Prabhupada नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18. Maharaj Parikshit, cursed by a Brahmana boy, text 50. Prayashah sadhavo loke parairdvandveshu yojitaha navyathanti na hrishyanti yata atma gunashrayaha. प्रायशः साधवो लोके परैर्द्वन्द्वेषु योजिताः न व्यथन्ति न हृष्यन्ति यत आत्मा गुणाश्रयः प्रायशः साधवो लोके परैर्द्वन्द्वेषु योजिताः न व्यथन्ति न हृष्यन्ति यत आत्मा गुणाश्रयः. Please chant.
हरे कृष्णा. प्रायशः साधवो लोके परैर्द्वन्द्वेषु योजितः न व्यथन्ति न हृष्यन्ति यत आत्मा गुणाश्रयः.
प्रायसः साधवो लोके परैर्द्वन्द्वेषु योजिता न व्यतन्ति न हृष्यन्ति यथा आत्मा गुणाश्रया.
प्रायशः साधवो लोके परैर्द्वन्द्वेषु योजिता न व्यथन्ति न हृष्यन्ति यथा आत्मा गुणाश्रया.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Word to word translation. Prayashaha, generally. Sadhavaha, saints. Loke, in this world. Paraihi, by others. Dvandveshu, in duality. Yojitaha, being engaged. Na, never. Vyathanti, distressed. Na, nor. Hrisyanti, takes pleasure. Yataha, because. Atma, self. Aguna ashrayaha, transcendental. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Generally, the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendentally engaged. I'll say that again, the translation. Generally, the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendentally engaged. Purport. The transcendentalists are the empiric philosophers, the mystics, and the devotees of the Lord. Empiric philosophers aim at the perfection of merging into the being of the Absolute. Mystics aim at perceiving the all-pervading Supersoul. And the devotees of the Lord are engaged in the transcendental loving service of the personality of Godhead. Since Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are different phases of the same transcendence, all these transcendentalists are beyond the three modes of material nature. Material distresses and happinesses are products of the three modes, and therefore the causes of such material distress and happiness have nothing to do with the transcendentalists. The king was a devotee and the rishi was a mystic. Therefore, both of them were unattached to the accidental incident created by the supreme will. The playful child was an instrument in fulfilling the Lord's will. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Maharaj Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you so much for joining today's Srimad Bhagavatam session to encourage me. It's really inspiring to see all of you here. And please bless me so that I'll say something today. So this is the last verse of this chapter. This chapter, chapter 18, is entitled Maharaj Parikshit Cursed by a Brahmana Boy. So I thought towards the end, we'll simply go over the whole chapter like a recollection. But first, I'll talk about this verse, the concluding portion of this chapter. So here the context is Samik Rishi. At first, he was shocked by the behavior of his son Shringi, and he said, "You committed a great sin by cursing Parikshit Maharaj." And what are the consequences of this? What he did was very insignificant, but the punishment that you've given to him, it's completely not justified. You cannot treat the king on the same level as ordinary people. The king is in a special position. He is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What will happen when there is no king? And then he gave the list of all the consequences in the kingdom or in a society where there is no monarchical regime. What are the consequences? How people will be plundered, women and animals will be stolen, and soon all people will become degraded. They will give up their occupational duties according to the Varnashrama Dharma, and they will simply be interested in sense gratification and economic development, and the entire population will be on the level of monkeys and dogs, Varna Sankara, who is shamelessly engaged in sense gratification. Srila Prabhupada even says, like interested only in sex life, in essence. After that, Samik Rishi is now seeing the situation of his son, Shringi. He is a foolish boy who has uttered this curse. Of course, he held the entire Brahmana community responsible for this. The consequences of removing the monarchical regime, this is the, who has to bear the responsibility for this? The Brahmanas have to bear, the community of Brahmanas, or the Brahmanas as a whole community, they have to bear responsibility for this act. So there also Srila Prabhupada explained how it is said in, I think, Varaha Purana, that, all the demons that were not killed by Krishna, who was spared, because anyone who gets killed by Krishna, he gets liberated. But the demons that were not killed by the Supreme Lord, they would take birth in the Brahmana family in Kali Yuga. Why Krishna gave them birth in Brahmana family? To give them an opportunity to rectify their behavior. Somehow or other they have come in contact with Krishna, so now they can correct their behavior. But because of their past samskaras, being a demon, even though they have taken birth in Brahmana's family, they are behaving like demons. So Srila Prabhupada was warning the Brahmanas, by birthright, who profess themselves to be Brahmanas, to be careful to not once again come under the grip of their, demoniac samskaras from past lives. So now Samika Rishi is concerned for Shringi. Shringi didn't only commit a sin by cursing the king, but this king happened to be a pure devotee of Krishna. So this was more grave than just cursing a king. This was an offense to a Vaishnava. And what kind of a Vaishnava? Param, Mahabhagavat Vaishnava. So when an offense is done to the devotee of the Lord, how does the Lord respond? The Lord does not forgive. If somebody commits an offense to the Vaishnava, you have to go and beg forgiveness from that Vaishnava. Until and unless that Vaishnava forgives you, you don't have any recourse. We see that in the history of Durvasa Muni, when he offended Ambarish Maharaj. He tried to save himself from the Sudarshan Chakra by taking shelter of other personalities, but finally he went to Lord Vishnu. And the Lord said, I am helpless. I cannot do anything in this matter. You have to go back to Ambarish Maharaj. So Samika Rishi could have gone to Parikshit Maharaj to beg for forgiveness. But what is the problem? Devotees, this is the nature of devotees, they don't take any offense. First of all, Parikshit Maharaj would have forgiven. In fact, what to speak of forgiving, he wouldn't even have taken it as an offense. We see he was thinking it's good that Shringi punished me, because I deserved it. I did. I garlanded the sage with a dead snake. So this is very good that I got a reaction to my sinful act. So Samik Rishi saw that a Vaishnava won't even, he won't take it as an offense. So he thought the only thing he could do was take shelter of the Supreme Lord. On what plea? On the plea that this is a foolish child, right? You can expect foolish activities from ignorant people. This is a foolish child. He doesn't have the intelligence, and you know, he has committed this great offense. Please forgive him, like that. And then in these last 3 verses, Shamika Rishi is telling about the nature of the devotees of the Lord. So text 48 says, the devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. They don't actually, this is the, how do you know about the greatness of a devotee? This is said in Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada writes, uh, the greatness of a devotee is estimated by his ability to tolerate the most provoking situations. So, this is the humility of a Vaishnava. I don't know about all of you. I get smashed every single day, right? Only I don't realize at that time. But when we read the scripture tells us, right? Like a mirror, it shows us who we are. But this is a symptom of a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is, how do you know how advanced is a Vaishnava? You know by his humility. And how do you know his humility? Under all circumstances, here specific, the main point is anything which is done to him, like on personal account. When an offense is done to him personally, him or her, he will not retaliate. He will not try to prove himself right. He will not be disturbed even. The more a devotee is advanced, the more he will be uh, not just tolerant, that is in the initial stages you tolerate, but as you advance, you're not even affected. You're not even affected. You don't even consider that as an offense. And then Shamika said that even killed. Look at that. Not just when he's defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected. We get offended even when we get neglected. What to speak of getting neglected? Even if he's killed, he's never inclined to avenge himself. This is a Vaishnava. So the sage regretted such a heavy punishment, right, has been awarded for such an insignificant act. This is the emperor, and he was in an awkward situation, right? He was hungry, he was thirsty, he was tired. And what was his position? He was the emperor. Out of frustration, he just put a dead snake and he went away. For that, this foolish child has given such a punishment, and he regretted it. So, of course, in the last verse, Srila Prabhupada explained this is all the Lord's arrangement. Like Parikshit Maharaj getting angry at a Brahmana, which never happened in his life before, that was completely, unheard of. Parikshit Maharaj becoming angry with a sage, with a yogi. And so that was the Lord's arrangement. This Brahmana boy's cursing Parikshit Maharaj was also the Lord's arrangement. And as a result, Parikshit Maharaj taking shelter of Sukadev Goswami, and Sukadev Goswami speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, and Parikshit Maharaj getting delivered. This is all the Lord's arrangement. So nobody is really at fault here. Of course, the boy, so what did the boy do? That he was made to curse, so he has to suffer the consequences. Well, there had to be some reason, there had to be some cause for Srimad Bhagavatam to come, and somebody had to play that role. So a child was made to play that role because a child can be forgiven easily. So he also didn't have to suffer the consequence. Nobody had to suffer the consequence. So now we come to today's verse, and the verse is, Srila Prabhupada chooses to explain it on the basis of the three types of transcendentalists. So here the word used is sadhavaha, sadhu. Generally the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world. So here we are not talking only about the devotees. It is said sadhus. So who are sadhus? That also Srila Prabhupada is explaining. Empiric philosophers or jnanis, mystics or yogis, and of course devotees. What is the destination of the jnanis? The destination of the jnanis is to merge into Brahman. The destination of yogis is to perceive Paramatma. Paramatma means the localized aspect of the Supreme Lord, who is there in every atom, who's there in my heart, who's there, who's with me all the time. The localized aspect of Bhagavan is Paramatma. And what is the destination of the devotees? The destination of devotees is Krishna Prema, to get love of Godhead, to be engaged in the loving devotional service of the Lord eternally. So all three are put in the category of transcendentalists. Why? So we see in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 11, Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. The learned transcendentalists call that non-dual substance as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. That means the object is the same, but according to the worshipper, he is perceived either as Brahman, as Paramatma, or as Bhagavan. The object is the same. It's like you have a mountain at a distance, and depending on the position of the seer, the person, he perceives the object differently. If the seer is far away, he gets a different picture of that mountain. And he sees it as a gray mountain with no variety on it. As he comes closer, he'll see that gray mountain has now become green. And if he actually comes even close and climbs the mountain, he will see it's not just green. There are so many trees, so many varieties of animals. Maybe there's some lakes and waterfalls in that mountain. The object is the same, but depending on my position, I'm perceiving it differently. Also in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, first verse. Janmadyasya yatonvayad itaratas chartheshu abhigyaswarat tene brahma hridaya adi kave muhyanti yat surayah tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha dhamna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi. That's satyam. Satyam means what? Satyam means that which exists in all three phases of time. past, present and future. This Satyam is also explained in the Upanishads. How is Satyam explained in Upanishads? Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. That Satyam is only Jnanam, that is only Anantam, and that is Brahma. So what is Brahma? Again, this Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. That non-dual substance. So Vyasdev is offering his obeisances to Brahman, Brahma. But who is he offering obeisances to? Satyam Param, Parabrahma. Who is that Parabrahma? Vasudev, Krishna. So the point is, whether somebody is worshipping the absolute truth as Brahman, or he's worshipping the absolute truth as Paramatma, or he's worshipping the absolute truth as Bhagavan, in all three cases, the object that he's approaching is the same. Of course, one is incomplete understanding of the object and one is complete understanding. The closer you get, you understand more about the absolute truth. So the Jnanis, when their goal, they see the absolute truth as Brahman and they want to go and merge into Brahman. And the path that they follow to realize that absolute truth is called Jnana, Jnana Marga. The yogis, they realize that absolute truth as Paramatma, and the path that they follow to achieve their goal is called Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga. There are 8 limbs in this yoga. And of course, the devotees, the bhaktas, in order to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they follow the path called Bhakti. All three of them become transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature. Material existence means we are being conducted by the 3 modes of material nature. That is material existence. We are controlled by the modes of material nature, goodness, passion and ignorance. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita 7:14? Daivi hiesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mamevaya prapadyante maya metam tarantite. So this divine energy of mind consisting of the 3 modes of material nature is difficult to overcome. But one who surrenders unto me can transcend this very easily. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is speaking of all the paths. The first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are talking about Nishkam Karma Yoga. Within those 6 chapters, Krishna talks about Jnana Yoga, leading to the last verse of the 6th chapter is Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam samyukta tamomata. Right? So who is the best of all yogis? That person who's always thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart. That is the best of all yogis. And who is that? That is a devotee. This leads to the next section of Bhagavad Gita, the middle portion. So the middle portion is talking about Bhakti Yoga. So the exercise that I'm going to do here is to find this quality. What is the quality that is said here in the purport? Srila Prabhupada is saying that, I'll just read the purport. Since Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan are different phases of the same transcendence, all these transcendentalists are beyond the 3 modes of material nature. All 3 of them are beyond the modes of material nature. Somebody who's following Jnana, somebody who's following Yoga, and someone who's following Bhakti, they're all transcendental to the modes of material nature. Material distresses and happiness are products of the 3 modes, and therefore the causes of such material distress and happiness have nothing to do with the transcendentalists. That means if you want to be a transcendentalist in any of these three paths, the basic first step is you have to actually transcend the modes of material nature. It is not that I will be in this material world, enjoying this material world, and at the same time I will also be a transcendentalist. No. And there is a symptom. There is a symptom of one who has transcended the modes of material nature. So Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita. So this is how Bhagavad Gita proceeds. The second chapter is a summary, right, of all the different paths. It'll talk about everything. But it's talking of Nishkama Karma Yoga. It's building up, right? And then the second chapter. So Nishkama Karma. So right now our position is we are doing karma. So like Narad Muni says in Srimad Bhagavatam. Whatever we have, you use that to get rid of, or so let's say you are bound in a particular situation, right? Okay, my karma, I have a body and I'm doing karma, I'm doing work. And this work is binding me. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. That's material law, but karma is like that. Every action has a reaction that binds me to this world. So what am I capable of in this world? I'm capable of doing work. In order to come out of this work, what can I do? You can use the same work which is treated, right? And that same work can be used to come out of this bondage created by the work. Narad Muni tells this to Vyasdev in Srimad Bhagavatam. And the analogy given there is, if somebody is suffering from diarrhea because of eating too many dairy products, or you took too much milk and now you're suffering from diarrhea. What is the medicine? You take milk in a treated way. You take yogurt and that treats you. Or sometimes it is said when you get, you become sick because of eating too much ghee, the medicine is you take ghee in a treated way and that acts as a medicine and it cures your disease. So our disease is we do karma and that karma is binding us. The same karma when you do in a treated way, what is that? Nishkama karma. Give up attachment to the fruits. Then that will actually bring you out of this bondage. This is Nishkama Karma Yoga. This is the very beginning stage. This is the beginning stage of yoga. Before that, you're a karmi. Karmi means you're working and you're enjoying. And of course, you follow. If you don't even follow the injunctions of the scriptures, how you should act in order to enjoy, if you don't follow, then you're not even a human being, you're an animal. Human society means you follow the directions given in the scriptures, how you should live your life. And there also, if your goal is simply to enjoy, live in this world and enjoy, and you follow the scriptures so that you can enjoy, then you're called a karmi. Yoga begins when you work to come out of this bondage. You want to connect with the absolute truth, then your yoga begins. So the very beginning stage is Nishkama Karma Yoga. In Nishkama Karma Yoga, you're doing karma, but you give up attachment to the fruits of the work. You keep working. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhur mate sangostva karmani. That is Nishkama Karma. You do your work, but without attachment to the fruits. Don't consider yourself to be the cause of that work, right? Don't think you are the person who's entitled to the fruits, and also don't be lazy. Don't, you give your 100%, but give up the fruit. Even in that initial stage, you will find this quality. That means somebody who's doing Nishkama Karma, he will also have this quality of not being affected by happiness and distress. The purport is saying material distresses and happinesses are products of the three modes, and therefore the causes of such material distress and happiness have nothing to do with the transcendentalists. This person is already a transcendentalist who's doing Nishkama Karma. He started. So, one who is a transcendentalist, he's got nothing to do with material happiness and distress. What is the proof for this? Bhagavad Gita 256. Dukkheshu anudvigna manaha sukheshu vigata sprihaha vitaraga bhaya krodha sthitadhir muni ruchyate. One who is not disturbed in mind even amidst the threefold miseries or elated when there is happiness. Who is not disturbed in mind even amidst the threefold miseries or elated when there is happiness. Who is free from attachment, fear and anger is called a sage of steady mind. Of course, in the second chapter, we are talking about the Sthita Pragya. So Sthita Pragya is actually in a higher stage. But I'm just saying, even in that stage, you are cultivating this quality of becoming free from not being affected by happiness and distress. Then by practicing Nishkama Karma Yoga properly, what is the promotion? Where do you get promoted to? To Jnana. That means when you enter into Jnana, when you're properly situated in Jnana, you give up karma. You don't have to do any karma anymore. Now you're doing karma, and then by doing that karma, you're trying to become detached, come out of the bondage. But when you enter into Jnana, you don't even have to do karma. So even a Jnani, we are seeing three types of transcendentalists in this purport, isn't it? We are seeing Jnani, Yogi and Bhakta. So Jnani, does the Jnani have this quality? What is the proof? Bhagavad Gita 5.3 says, Gyeyah sanitya sannyasi yona dveshti na kankshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated. So again, Yona dveshti na kankshati. He's not, actually there are other verses also. There are many verses like this in Bhagavad Gita which will tell us about the consciousness of a transcendentalist. Right? Like nadveshti nakanshati and nahrishyati. What's that? There's another one. Nabhinandati.
Sochati.
Sochati. So like that. Many verses are there to show that a transcendentalist is not affected by the dualities, happiness, distress. So this was a Jnani. Then about Ashtanga Yogi, we see in 6th chapter, 6, 7. जितात्मानः प्रशान्तस्य परमात्मा समाहितः शीतोष्ण सुख दुःखेषु तथा मानापमानयो. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Ashtanga Yogi. He is not affected. And further it is said he sees gold and stone as the same. So he is not affected by happiness and distress. And then the devotee, we see in the 12th chapter. The 12th chapter is 7 to 12 are talking about bhakti. So 12:13 says, Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitraha karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankaraha sama dukkha sukhakshami. One who is not envious but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me, Krishna is saying. So what did we see? That this quality of not being affected by material happiness and distress is found in all three types of transcendentalists. So in this case, Parikshit Maharaj was a bhakta, so he is not affected. Samik Rishi was a yogi, he is also not affected. So in what way? The king, when he was cursed by Shringi, he didn't think, he was a young king, he was a young man, very strong. But he thought this is a good opportunity, right, to take full shelter of Krishna. So he just gave up everything and he perfected his life. And how did Samika Rishi respond? Of course, he first expressed his, unhappiness, disappointment at Shringi's behavior. But then, he prayed to the Lord for the boy to be forgiven, and he took shelter of the Lord. What can be done, right? So this is the nature of a transcendentalist. Whether there are reversals, or even when there is something pleasant, he doesn't become too elated, nor does he become so disappointed, so depressed that he cannot even function. Not like that. He'll go on with his services, he'll go on with his practices. So thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the first canto, 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Maharaj Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. So I thought maybe quickly we can go over this entire chapter and its sections. This 18th chapter is called Maharaj Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. So Srila Sutta Goswami begins this chapter by, it's kind of once again reminding, like going through the whole life of Parikshit Maharaj in a nutshell. So he said that when Parikshit Maharaj was in the womb of his mother, he was protected by the Supreme Lord from being burned. And then Parikshit Maharaj, when he was cursed by Shringi to die, he was not afraid, he was not bewildered. Rather, he took that as an opportunity to surrender to Krishna. And then he took shelter of Srila Sukadev Goswami. And he was, by hearing from Sukadev Goswami, he was able to understand the actual position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And finally, he gave up his body, meditating on the Supreme Lord on the banks of Ganges. Is this wonderful that he was able to remember the Lord at the time of death? No, because his entire life was dedicated to the transcendental topics of the Supreme Lord. And he was constantly engaged in remembering the lotus feet of the Lord. To such a person, there is no risk of, will I be able to remember the Lord at the time of death? He doesn't have to worry. Then the glories of Parikshit Maharaj were said. How Parikshit Maharaj dealt with Kali. Even though Kali had taken shelter of Parikshit Maharaj, so Parikshit Maharaj gave some places for Kali to stay, but he was very alert, right? As long as Parikshit Maharaj was the emperor, Kali could not really spread, couldn't get a footage, right? A ground in Parikshit Maharaj's kingdom, because nobody would indulge in those sinful activities. How did Kali enter this planet? How did he enter the earth? When Krishna left, that very day, Kali entered. Then somebody may question, Parikshit Maharaj, why did you leave that Kali without killing him? Why did you allow him to live? Because Parikshit Maharaj is like a honeybee, right? Honeybee simply takes the essence. It doesn't care for all the garbage. So Parikshit Maharaj thought that in this Kali Yuga, there is a very good opportunity. Even if somebody thinks of doing some good, perform some good activity, he gets the result. But to get the reaction of inauspicious activity, he has to actually perform it. You don't get any reaction for thinking about it. So therefore, Parikshit Maharaj was not envious of Kali. He was not thinking Kali will be able, because there is the advantage in this Kali, even simply by thinking, people can, perfect their lives. And besides, this Kali can only be a tiger. right? He's a tiger amongst the foolish people. That means those people who are ignorant and who are careless in their spiritual lives, Kali can attack them. But someone who is, self-controlled, Kali won't be able to attack such people. So Parikshit Maharaj's hope was, what is the weapon in Kali Yuga, right? Chanting the holy names of the Lord. So under his leadership, he's guiding everyone. So Kali won't be able to take over. So with that intention, Kali Maharaj didn't punish. Parikshit Maharaj didn't punish Kali. So like this, Sutta Goswami gave a description of Parikshit Maharaj, and he said, now I have explained whatever you have asked about Parikshit Maharaj in relation to Krishna's pastimes. Anyone who is desiring to achieve perfection in life, what should he do? He should submissively hear about the topics related to the transcendental activities, qualities of the Supreme Lord. So when the sages heard this, now from text 11 to 17, so this was 1 to 10, 11 to 17, the sages say, they begin to speak to Sutta Goswami. First of all, they're so grateful. They're saying, oh, Sutta Goswami, may you live for a long time. And you have given us this nectar, this immortal nectar. So may you live for a long time. And then we were performing this karma kanda sacrifice, fruitive activity. And as a result, our bodies have become black with the smoke of this sacrifice. And even our hearts have also become black. Why? Because of, material desires. So, but by hearing from you the nectar, right, about the activities, the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are actually so this was our situation, and you have come to give us the nectar, right? So we are in a very deplorable condition, being burnt by this sacrifice, the fire of this sacrifice, and you have come to save us like that. And your association is so valuable. Even a moment's association of a pure devotee cannot be compared to anything else. You cannot compare it to liberation. You cannot compare it to going to heavens. What to speak of other material benedictions in this world. You cannot compare it with anything. Like this, Sutta Goswami glorifies the association of a Vaishnava. And further he says that, what are the glories of the Supreme Lord? The Supreme Lord, he is the exclusive shelter of all great living beings. And his transcendental attributes cannot even be measured by such great personalities as Brahma and Shiva. He's so great. Can anyone ever become satiated by, like you eat 10, I don't know if you have eaten, but if you eat 10 gulab jamuns, and then if somebody says eat more, you'll be like, no, I've had enough. Like that. Can anyone ever come to a point where they say, I've heard enough about Krishna's pastimes? No, that will never happen. That's what the sages are saying. Can anyone who is expert in relishing the nectar or rasa about the Supreme Lord ever become fully satiated on hearing about him? No. So therefore they're saying, oh, Sutta Goswami, you are a pure devotee of the Lord, and you have served the Lord so nicely. So now we want to hear from you about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. We are very anxious to hear these messages. Please describe to us the topics of the Lord by which Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord. So there's a description about what is the liberation that Parikshit Maharaj got. Was he practicing some Jnana Yoga that he got, moksha? No. The liberation that a devotee gets is devotional service to the Supreme. That is our aspiration. That is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Mama Janmani Janmanishvare Bhavatad Bhaktira Ahaituki Tvai. Life after life after life, I simply want devotional service to your lotus feet. That is the liberation for a devotee. If we are able to render devotional service to Krishna, we have, we don't have any other desire. That's the goal. If I can keep, and then with love. The thing is, we need love of Godhead, right? There are different levels: sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. But at least, even if we are able to do sadhana bhakti, we are very, very grateful for that. But we can progress further. The same you do with feeling, with a relationship to the Lord, and finally with love. That's the perfection. But our liberation for devotees is, it's not like we saw gyanis and yogis, right? Somebody wants to go and merge into Brahman, someone else wants to go and they want proximity, right? You want to go and be in the same place where the Lord is. Not like that. We simply want devotional service to the Lord, right? Wherever he wants us to be, just give us devotional service, and that is the goal. So like this, the sages are saying, please narrate to us. And then Sri Sutta Goswami, now from text 18 onwards, 18 to 23, we see Sutta Goswami's heart, his humility. I was born in a low, like in a mixed caste. But still, because of association of a pure devotee, I have been given this, I have been promoted to a higher position. What is that higher position? I'm able to speak about the glories of the Lord, right? How? This is only by the mercy of Sri Sukadev Goswami, right? If somebody even comes in contact of a sadhu sanga, sarva shastra kohe, lava matra sadhu sanga, sarva siddhi hoye. Lava is a very, very small fraction of a second time. So you get the association of a sadhu for such a small time, your life becomes sarva siddhi hoye. You get all perfection in your life. Sutta Goswami is saying, what to speak of someone who is under the direction of such great devotees? He gets to chant the names of the Lord under the guidance of such a great devotee. This is, if I am in this position that you're asking me to speak about the Lord, this is not my glory. This is simply the mercy of my Guru Maharaj by the association of sadhus. And he also glorifies all the sadhus present in front of him. He's saying that, O rishis who are as powerfully pure as the sun, I shall try to describe to you the transcendental pastimes of Vishnu as far as my knowledge is concerned. And how he says, this is also very classic, right? Famous statement. As the birds fly in the sky as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. So everyone can glorify the Supreme Lord. We don't have to be big, great, advanced personalities. We can glorify the Lord according to our capacity. The only thing is, don't change anything. Don't add or delete anything. Just repeat what you have heard from the scriptures, from the sadhus. Repeat that. Every person can glorify the Lord according to his capacity. Like the birds fly. Some birds fly high, some birds fly low. So even a child can glorify the Lord. We hear Srila Prabhupada says Malati Prabhu's daughter Saraswati, when she was little, she would go to people in India and she would say, do you know who is Krishna? And they would say, no. And then she would say, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. That's all she knew. But she was telling everyone. And this is appreciated by a pure devotee. This is preaching. So everyone can glorify, whoever we may be, we can glorify the Lord according to our capacity. And that satisfies the Lord. So Sutta Goswami in that humility is saying, as the birds fly in the sky as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. There is no competition here. And then he begins what exactly happened. Like once Parikshit Maharaj was hunting and then he was very tired, and so we've been reading that pastime in the past few weeks. And then finally, he comes to Samik Rishi's ashram looking for some water. Samik Rishi is in trance, right? He's not aware of external world, and he doesn't respond to the king. This king comes and asks him for some water, and the sage doesn't even hear him. And the king gets offended, which is not normal for him at all, right? So with that, we understand this is the Lord's arrangement, the king becoming frustrated. And then just before leaving, out of anger, he just puts a dead snake around the sage and he goes away. And this Samik Rishi had a son who was playing with the other boys. He comes to hear that Parikshit Maharaj put a dead snake around his father, and then he becomes very angry. Look at these, upstart Kshatriyas. Who do they think they are? They are like crows, or like watchdogs. They live at the mercy of the Brahmanas. Now they have the audacity to enter into the house of the Brahmanas. I'm going to curse, like that. Then he cursed the king to die in 7 days by the bite of a snake bird. And after saying this, he went back to his father and he started crying. The father opened his eyes and he asked what happened. And the boy explained, this is what happened, and I cursed the king. And what happened after that, we discussed at the beginning of this class. So, in this way, we come to the conclusion of chapter 18. So, I will stop there. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna. If there's any comments, please, you're welcome.
Hare Krishna Prabhus. Thank you very much, Mataji. Nicely summarized and very nicely explained. If anybody has questions or comments, please just unmute yourself and go ahead. Okay, Kalpesh Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I want to get clarified on a couple of things. First is as soon as Lord Krishna left and Kali Yuga started, then the question always comes in my mind is we read the verse Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavani yuge yuge. So Lord comes and do the re-establishment of the dharma, and the idea of why he re-established the dharma, that the dharma should be followed, rules and regulations. That is why there is an appearance of the Lord. But in the Kali Yuga, after Lord Krishna left, and if dharma is not staying it, would that not defeat the purpose of coming to the like Lord's coming for the re-establishment? How would we defend that that even after Krishna came here and he left, immediately adharma Kali Yuga started?
Yes.
Would we really justify that the whole point of a Lord appearing is for dharma? And
yes.
So
yes.
That.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice question, Prabhuji. So Krishna did relieve the earth of the burden. You see, he killed all the earth was overburdened by these demoniac kings who were building these big military armies and trampling on the earth. So finally there was the battle of Kurukshetra. Before that also Krishna fought with Jarasandha, and he killed so many, Shishupal and all the others. But finally, when there was the battle of Kurukshetra, how many? 660 million, right? Soldiers, warriors took part in that battle. And everyone except for a few handful, was killed in that battle. So yes, all the sinful people were killed. So Krishna did fulfill his condition of Paritranaya Sadhunam. He established the Pandavas as the rulers. He established Yudhishthir Maharaj. We saw that after the battle of Kurukshetra, he also made Yudhishthir Maharaj perform 3 Ashwamedha Yagyas. He installed him as the emperor. And then he had already killed. Vinashaya cha dushkritam already he did. Paritranaya sadhunam also is done. Dharma samsthapanarthaya. So who will do this dharma samsthapana? So his devotees, the king, the Kshatriya king is the one who does that. So that was done. Now your question is, after he leaves, it should have continued like that. How Kali entered? Even this system of Satya Yuga, Treta, Dwapar, Kali is also created by the Lord only. Now, after Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga comes. So Kali has to come. It's just like we don't like winter season because it's very cold, but we cannot stop it. It still has to come, isn't it? But that doesn't mean the Lord didn't take care of the people in Kali Yuga. He just, oh, well, it's Kali Yuga, so you suffer. No. He personally came. When he personally came, he took care of all the people. How? The other day I was explaining this, I don't know in which class, but when he was personally there, normally we cannot see the form of the Lord. His body is Satchidananda. His body is Satchidananda. We cannot see Satchidananda with these fleshy eyes. You need transcendental eyes to see him. But still, by his power, he allowed everyone to see his transcendental form when he was there. And by this, seeing his beautiful form, he also gave them a taste, right? He filled their hearts with, with the sweetness of his beauty. And by this, what he did, all the people were drowning in the ocean of material existence. He pulled them out of the ocean of material existence and he drowned them in the ocean of nectar of his beauty. So he did that when he was there. Then what about the people that will come after he leaves? For them, he left Bhagavad Gita behind. He left Srimad Bhagavatam behind. So anyone who takes shelter of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, they can remain immune to the influences of Kali. But it doesn't mean that now Kali will not be there, he will just remove. No, this is Kali's period. He has to be here. But he also gave us a medicine, how to protect yourself. Yajantihi sumedhasaha Krishna varnam trisha krishnam sango pangastra parshadam yagyai sankirtana prayir yajantihi sumedha. Those are sumedhasaha, exceptionally intelligent people. They will take shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through this Sankirtan movement. And also there is Bhagavad Gita, there is Srimad Bhagavatam. So he didn't abandon us. Even though he physically left, he's still there to give us protection. But Kali will also be there because this is Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga means there has to be a deity for that. So Kali is there. Is that clear, Prabhuji? Was that helpful?
Yes, it did. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
Thank you,
Mataji.
Mataji. Yeah. Yesterday's verse, there was a little bit of a discussion at the end of class. So the line that we were trying to talk about was this one. The serious offense was committed by a foolish child. Therefore, he deserved to be pardoned by the Supreme Lord, although it was not possible to get free from the sinful reaction. So just a little clarification about that. How to, he was pardoned, but his karma is not going to be pardoned. Is that?
It says, although it was not possible, normally it would not have been possible to be free from such a sin. But if he's pardoned by the Supreme Lord, then he doesn't have to suffer. So he didn't have to suffer anything. It's like somebody is convicted, but the king has the power to just relieve him of that, right? He can give that, same with the president also can do that in India. He has that power. So like that. So if Krishna pardons him, the person who otherwise would have been, suffering the reactions of that sin, he can be relieved. That's.
So he was pardoned of that sin, but
because by praying to the Supreme Lord. So
but sinful reaction, he would still have to.
No. None of them were put into difficulty because everything was done in relation with the Supreme Person. Last line of that purport. None of them. So none of them were put into difficulty. Nobody had to suffer. Shringi also didn't have to suffer. He would have had to suffer normally, but now because of the mercy of the Supreme Lord, he will be pardoned. Why? Because he is a foolish boy. You can forgive foolish children, their foolishness, like that. So yeah, he didn't have to suffer that sin.
But in the Mundaka, when Vidura, when we were talking about Vidura and how he had to, Yamaraj had to take birth and why that was, in that thing we were talking about, because he, as a child, he had committed the...
No, but here the point is, because
If
it is done in relation with the Supreme Person, that is the point.
Yes. So
Samik Rishi is praying to the Supreme Lord to pardon the child. And over and above all this whole thing was orchestrated by the Supreme Lord. So therefore, all the players, they're free. They're not responsible for anything. They're simply acting on behalf of the Lord. Like that. So in that case, Vidura's case, it was not like that. Manduk Muni, yeah.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else? I don't see any other hands up.
Charuchandra Prabhu, would you like to add something, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna. Well, no, you did such a great job that I don't think there is any need to add anything.
Thank you for your kindness. Hare Krishna. So we'll end here. Granth-raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveta Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Bhakta Vrind ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hoping to see everybody at the picnic in an hour. Hare Krishna.
Oh, where's the picnic in an hour?
Peace Valley Park. I mean, you don't have to rush in an hour because I'm still here. I don't know if I'll make it there in an hour, but we had said 10 o'clock, but around 11:30, I think most people will join. We will have prasadam around 12:30, 1 o'clock. And then Gaur-Nitai will also be there. It's by the river, so we're going to have a Panihati picnic. We will have Aarti, Kirtan, and yes, so, and we will have Chita Dahi prasadam after it's offered to Gaur-Nitai.
Jai.
Thank you.